You're about to experience life through the eyes of an ordinary medieval tanner. Forget romantic images of castles, tournaments, and knights. Instead, prepare yourself for a detailed, ironically gloomy journey into the daily life of a common person whose profession was considered a necessary evil of society. Day after day, you'll find yourself immersed in filth, enduring pain and humiliation, and realizing the harsh irony of your existence. This story will reveal how difficult, dirty, and thankless the reality of an average craftsman truly was, hidden behind elegant boots and sturdy leather armor. But before you settle in comfortably, don't forget to hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and let me know in the comments where you're watching from and what time it is there right now. It's always fascinating to see who has joined us today. Now, sit back, relax, and let's begin. You awaken not to the soothing aroma of freshly brewed coffee or the gentle warmth of morning sunlight, but rather to the overwhelming stench of putrid hides steeped in stale urine and festering animal flesh. Your first conscious breath draws in the humid, acrid scent that saturates every fiber of your small wooden dwelling, a place that could scarcely be described as more than a shack. Its walls, warped and swollen by years of exposure to moisture, cradle you in a manner far from comforting. You rise from your straw pallet, joints stiff and muscles aching, having been shaped by years of relentless, repetitive labor. The early chill penetrates your bones, reminding you sharply that comfort is a luxury reserved for others. The floor beneath your calloused feet is perpetually damp, spongy, and slippery from decades of dripping, foul smelling liquids. The dimness around you offers little comfort. The sparse, half rotten furnishings, a splintered table, a single stool, and rusted iron hooks from which garments hang only amplify the grim bleakness of your surroundings. Clothing is an afterthought, a patchwork assemblage of coarse fabrics, thick with grime, and the residue of countless days spent elbow deep in unspeakable mixtures. Pulling on your leather apron, stiffened with dried filth and substances better left unmentioned, you prepare for another monotonous but inevitably arduous day. Exiting your hovel, you step into the cool air of pre dawn darkness, guided only by the dim silhouette of wooden vats aligned in your small yard. These vats, your silent tormentors, loom ominously in the shadows, each filled with varying concentrations of caustic solutions, from murky river water to vats full of weeks old urine, indispensable in your line of work. Your nostrils, immune to most foul odors after years in your trade, still twitch involuntarily when you approach these containers. Despite your familiarity with the stench, it never fails to bring a faint grimace to your weary face. Your morning begins with inspection. This is no pleasant stroll. Rather, it's a meticulous and revolting routine. Approaching the first vat, you thrust your bare arms into its depths, fingers probing the slippery hides submerged beneath a rancid surface, judging their readiness for the next grueling stage. Each hide must be softened enough to scrape clean, but sturdy enough not to dissolve in the corrosive stew. Your hands, numb from years of chemical exposure, nonetheless detect subtle variations in texture and resistance, an instinctive skill honed through painful experience. Your world exists entirely within this cycle of preparation and judgment, between the risk of ruin and the slim margin of success. The skins you deem ready you haul from their liquid prisons, each heavy and slick with pungent fluid, depositing them roughly onto nearby wooden beams. As you do so, the splashes land on your apron, your feet, your face, making your already revolting attire even more repellent. There's no protest from you, no curse escapes your lips, for the futility of complaint became clear years ago. Your only reaction is the resigned sigh of a man fully cognizant of the absurd cruelty of his fate. The process of scraping commences next. Armed with a blunt edged tool, you lean heavily over each skin, removing remnants of fur, rotted tissue, and stubborn membranes that cling with desperate tenacity. The rhythmic scraping sound, punctuated only by your strained breaths and occasional muffled groans, echoes into the gradually brightening sky. Each stroke strains your muscles, already sore from yesterday's identical routine. Your back begins to protest, a dull, persistent ache reminding you sharply of your limitations and your lack of choice. By the time dawn breaks and the sky turns a grim shade of gray, your hands are raw and reddened, your wrists throbbing from repetitive movements. A glance upwards offers no respite, for the day ahead is still dauntingly long. The sense of grim resignation has long since replaced any youthful ambitions you might have once entertained. Dreams of wealth, comfort, or respect have been reduced to bitter fantasies you reserve only for your bleakest moments, now entirely alien to the brutal pragmatism that characterizes your daily existence. Hunger stirs briefly within you, a weak sensation barely acknowledged. Meals in your world are neither plentiful nor appealing, merely an inconvenience punctuating your labor. Any thoughts of breakfast are dismissed swiftly. There is far too much left undone, and daylight is precious, even in a life so seemingly devoid of value. A sudden cold gust sweeps across your yard, rustling the piled hides and stirring ripples across the fetid surfaces of your vats. Shivering briefly, you take a moment to wipe the acrid sweat and pungent liquid from your brow, your skin slick and gritty beneath your fingertips. There is a brief pause in your rhythm, a fleeting moment of quiet contemplation. You find yourself reflecting ironically on the simplicity and brutality of your chosen craft. Or perhaps chosen is an inappropriate word. Indeed, fate has cruelly dictated your path, a path trodden by generations before you, a life inherited through necessity rather than preference. As you resume your scraping, your thoughts return reluctantly to the tasks that await you later, mixing the tanning baths, dealing with stubborn buyers, risking injuries with sharp instruments, all for the simple aim of survival. The thought offers no encouragement, merely a bleak acceptance of the reality you have been consigned to. Your neighbors, safely ensconced within warmer and cleaner homes, begin to awaken, their distant murmurs and movements marking the approach of day. From their vantage point, safely removed from your acrid domain, they regard your trade with barely concealed disdain. You are tolerated only because your skills are necessary. No one bothers to question the filth or danger involved in your craft. Such knowledge is neither desired nor welcomed by those who benefit most from your hardship. The irony is bitterly apparent to you as you continue your task beneath the gray skies of another harsh morning. Your labor will ultimately clothe those who regard you with contempt, offering them warmth and status at your personal cost. Yet you expect no gratitude, no recognition, only the quiet, persistent drudgery that defines every waking moment. As the sun slowly edges above the horizon, casting pale, sickly light across your workspace, you straighten painfully from your crouched position, stretching stiffened limbs that resist your command. A glance over your shoulder reveals the crude piles of scraped hides, waiting silently for the next stage of their transformation. The prospect fills you with neither pride nor satisfaction, only the grim awareness that the cycle will soon repeat itself anew, a never ending routine from which escape seems impossible. Exhaustion already seeps into your bones, yet you steel yourself for what lies ahead, breathing deeply of air that is heavy with ammonia and decay. Your morning has offered no peace, no reprieve, and certainly no coffee, only the stark reminder of the harsh, unforgiving life into which you've been thrust. And so you continue, for you have no alternative, bound irrevocably to the grim cycle that begins anew each dawn, a daily battle waged not for glory, but merely for the barest chance at survival. Having completed the morning's filthy routine, you pause briefly to catch your breath, though each inhalation fills your lungs with odors far worse than exhaustion itself. The sun has now risen, indifferent and pale, offering no warmth, merely casting a bleak, unflattering glare upon the landscape of your trade. Around you, the yard resembles a battlefield of decay, hides stacked loosely, tools coated in sludge, and barrels brimming with the toxic brews you meticulously prepare and maintain. Your next task, as unavoidable as sunrise, is preparing the infamous tanning solution. A morbid concoction, this blend is both alchemical and repulsive, a mixture of oak bark, crushed insects, animal dung, and other ingredients whispered among leather workers as if they were secret treasures. Your ingredients are neither exotic nor glamorous. Instead, they consist of refuse gathered from various corners of the town, manure from the stables, dung from pigeons that infest rooftops, and even your own household's chamber pot, contents painstakingly collected and saved. You handle them methodically, without disgust or hesitation, for your senses long ago grew numb, blunted by daily exposure to life's less dignified aspects. As you scoop handfuls of pungent materials into a large wooden barrel, carefully pouring murky river water atop the mixture, you notice the surface bubbling ominously. The acrid scent intensifies, assaulting your nose and burning your throat. Unfazed, you stir the putrid broth with a worn wooden paddle, watching the murky liquid swirl slowly, revealing floating bits of matter best left unidentified. This caustic brew will eventually transform raw hides into usable leather, essential for shoes, belts, saddles, and armor. And yet, as you stand over this barrel of human and animal waste, you cannot help but find bitter humor in the idea that noble knights and wealthy merchants unknowingly adorn themselves in garments steeped in excrement. The solution ready, you heave another stack of hides into the mixture, one by one, each hide splashing thick droplets of the foul liquid onto your face and chest. A thin film forms quickly on your skin, a sticky reminder of your place in the world. You shove the hides beneath the surface, ignoring the painful cracks and open sores on your hands, worsened by constant exposure to the corrosive fluid. By evening, the mixture will work its grim magic, slowly breaking down fibers and transforming the skins into something durable and valuable, yet, ironically, never enriching the man who bears the real cost of their making. Next, your attention shifts to the older vats, those that have already spent days steeping in similar solutions. Time, temperature, and chemistry must be precisely managed. Mistakes mean ruin, wasted hides, lost in earnings, and increased poverty. You approach the oldest vat with practiced caution, slipping your bare arms once again into its tepid depths, retrieving the first hide, slick and dripping with brownish foam. The hide has swollen grotesquely, its texture somewhere between slimy flesh and resilient fabric. Hoisting it onto the beam nearby, you inspect it with grim determination, noting imperfections and decay that demand your immediate attention. The scraping process resumes, this time more forcefully, more precisely. You wield a razor sharp crescent blade with practiced ease, removing the toughest tissues, stubborn sinew, and fragments of rot that cling defiantly. But familiarity breeds contempt and carelessness. Midway through your task, the blade slips, slicing deep into the palm of your hand. Blood flows quickly, mixing immediately with the foul residue coating your skin. You curse softly, more annoyed than shocked, and bandage the wound hurriedly with a dirty scrap of cloth. Infection is inevitable, you think bitterly, yet another burden added to your daily tally of suffering. With grim resignation, you continue your work, ignoring the throbbing pain. You've long since accepted these injuries as normal. Cuts, burns, infections, these are occupational hazards, routine elements in your world. Only those who know nothing of your craft imagine it a simple, dirty job. But you understand the harsh truth, the daily risks, the endless toil, and the ironic truth that the very materials that protect others slowly destroy your own body, consuming you bit by bit. Hours drag onward, each minute stretching painfully. You haul hides, scrape flesh, stir caustic vats, and breathe fumes that would choke a stronger, luckier man. Your hands are now swollen and blistered, your fingertips cracked open, leaving raw flesh exposed. You glance down, briefly reflecting that your skin now looks not much different from the hides you handle. It is a sobering comparison, but one you've contemplated many times before. How easily your existence blurs the line between living man and lifeless product. Eventually, you pause again, thirsty, drained, and aching. Water from the nearby stream is hardly cleaner than your vats, yet you drink greedily, grateful for the momentary relief, despite the vague taste of mud and iron. As you wipe the gritty moisture from your mouth, your gaze falls upon your yard, your prison, your life, dirty, harsh, unforgiving. A bitter chuckle escapes your lips, a dry sound born of exhausted irony. After all, who would choose this life willingly? Yet here you stand, a prisoner of your own circumstances, endlessly bound to your craft by necessity rather than choice. Throughout your work, you catch distant glances of townsfolk passing by your modest dwelling. They hold cloth to their noses, avert their eyes, hasten their steps. To them, you are merely part of the landscape, an unpleasant but necessary fixture, like the dung piles in the street. No gratitude, no acknowledgement, no respect. Your labor serves a society that denies your humanity, dismissing your sacrifice as a necessary evil. But what else should you expect? The filth on your skin seems indelible, marking you permanently as a pariah. As midday approaches, your limbs feel heavier, movements slower, joints stiffened by repetitive tasks. Your stomach twists with hunger, but food remains secondary, forgotten in your dreary, monotonous existence. You push aside the sensation. It matters little anyway, for even your meals are joyless affairs, stale bread, bits of salted fish or flavorless gruel, eaten hurriedly amidst the fumes and filth that define your home. Now, with the sun high overhead, you look around once more. Your yard is a vision of grotesque industry, hides stretched like pale ghosts, barrels full of murky solutions, scraps of flesh and hair scattered across the muddy earth. The odor, relentless and thick, clings to your clothing, your skin, your soul. Even animals avoid your yard. Rats and stray dogs instinctively keep their distance, driven away by smells they recognize as poison. Yet you continue, hour after grim hour, wrapped in the cruel embrace of decay and chemistry. Your task seems endless, your labor thankless, your existence hollowed by repetition and degradation. Yet still, you endure, for what other choice do you possess? Thus, your day drags forward, bleak, monotonous, and unchanging, every action steeped in irony, every moment underscoring the grim reality of your craft. Your labor provides comfort, security, and protection for others, yet grants you nothing but misery, illness, and scorn. And so you continue, relentlessly, knowingly, even ironically, as the afternoon settles into evening and the vats bubble softly, indifferent to your suffering. As midday wanes into the long shadow of afternoon, you allow yourself a brief pause, leaning against a cracked, mold covered wall, taking stock of your battered hands. The palm sliced earlier throbs insistently, reminding you sharply of your fragile humanity. Around you, silence reigns, punctuated only by the soft bubbling and popping from your vats, now simmering slowly under the sun's indifferent gaze. You decide to eat something, though calling this meal lunch would stretch the bounds of truth. Reaching into a stained sack hung carelessly near the door, you retrieve a hunk of bread, stale as dried mud, and a strip of salted fish, whose odor suspiciously mirrors the pungency of your own workspace. You chew mechanically, tasting more salt and bitterness than genuine flavor. It is nourishment devoid of pleasure, a perfunctory act to maintain your strength, though for what exactly remains bitterly unclear. As you eat, your eyes sweep the cluttered yard once more. There, on wooden racks, lie partially processed hides, stretched tight as drum skins, drying slowly in the bleak sunlight. The sight evokes grim amusement. These skins, like you, seem perpetually caught between states, no longer alive, but not fully transformed. They wait passively, accepting their fate, a reflection that makes your own situation seem even more ironic and hopeless. Each hide carries with it the story of a creature whose life was brief, brutal, and swiftly ended. Yet, even in death, its suffering continues, echoed in your own endless struggle. Meal finished, you rise stiffly, groaning as joints pop audibly. A task now awaits you that fills even experienced leatherworkers with dread. The dangerous, exacting art of trimming and shaping raw hides into something resembling useful leather. It's a chore requiring precision, strength, and an intimate familiarity with sharp edged tools that easily become instruments of pain. You move towards your workshop, a sagging shed with moss covered shingles, the interior dim and oppressive, illuminated faintly through small, grimy windows. Inside, arranged meticulously on a crude wooden table, are the tools of your trade, knives of varying sizes, blades curved ominously like claws, sharpening stones worn smooth through constant use, and a small hatchet whose dulled edge betrays years of heavy labor. Each implement seems deceptively benign, yet you know intimately the hidden threat each carries. They have scarred you often enough, reminders etched in flesh that your trade demands sacrifice beyond mere labor. Selecting a long, curved knife with a thin blade, you place the first hide across the workbench, holding it firmly in position. Your hands tremble slightly, a mix of fatigue, hunger, and accumulated injury, but you steel yourself nonetheless. The blade meets the hide with a wet slicing sound, parting fibers and scraping away rough imperfections. You carve meticulously, sculpting the rough material into something resembling usefulness. Bits of excess hide peel away in slimy ribbons, littering the floor, where they quickly become slippery, a hazard silently awaiting a misplaced step. Minutes pass in monotonous repetition, your blade sliding repeatedly through the toughened leather, each stroke precise yet risky. Gradually, your movements grow confident, though your mind remains alert, ever watchful for the smallest misstep. One careless movement could cost you dearly, a deep gash, severed tendon, or worse, all consequences grimly familiar in your trade. You recall past injuries vividly, the dull ache in your wrist from old wounds, scars that remain stubbornly visible, constant reminders of the thin line between craftsmanship and catastrophe. With morbid fascination, you reflect upon how readily others romanticize your profession, imagining the humble artisan quietly crafting sturdy boots or finely tooled belts. They see only the finished product, ignorant of the blood and pain woven deeply into each stitch. Customers seldom consider how many drops of blood your leather has absorbed, how many injuries you've silently endured to produce goods they so casually discard when fashions change or leather wears thin. Your work continues, blades slicing rhythmically, forming smooth edges and contours from what had been lifeless, filthy flesh mere days before. But your luck soon falters. As you guide the knife through a particularly stubborn section, your grip slips slightly, causing the blade to skid unexpectedly. It grazes your thumb, opening another shallow wound. Blood drips onto the hide, starkly red against the pale, translucent surface. You grunt softly, less from pain than irritation at your recurring carelessness. Quickly, you wipe the blood away, masking your injury and continuing without pause, for your work does not allow time for hesitation or complaint. Hours drag by, each hide demanding your undivided attention. Your back screams in protest from constant bending. Your fingers stiffen from sustained pressure, and yet you continue without rest. As you labor, thoughts drift unwillingly toward the deeper ironies that bind you to this life. The leather you painstakingly craft serves as protective boots, elegant saddles, sturdy belts, all items others take for granted, oblivious to the bodily cost paid by the craftsman who remains forever anonymous. Society demands the products of your pain while denying your very presence. To them, you are invisible, repugnant, yet indispensable. As the afternoon deepens into twilight, you set aside your tools momentarily, stretching cramped muscles, allowing a brief respite from your relentless work. Sweat trickles slowly down your spine, mingling unpleasantly with dirt and grime. Outside, you hear the faint sounds of distant voices and laughter, reminders of lives lived far removed from your own. The brief glimpse of normalcy makes your own isolation sting sharply, reinforcing your status as an outsider condemned to perpetual solitude. Stepping into the fading daylight, you survey the day's progress, completed hides neatly arranged, waiting silently for the market. A grim satisfaction settles within you, tempered by the bitter knowledge of tomorrow's identical tasks. Your labor has been thorough, painstaking, and exacting, yet no amount of skill will lift you from your lowly place. The hides, now cleaned and shaped, remain as symbols of your ceaseless toil and futility. Returning once more inside, you meticulously clean your tools, blades reflecting faintly in the dim glow of twilight filtering through grimy windows. Each implement is cared for with a reverence born not from pride, but survival. Dull tools mean increased danger, inefficiency, lost profit, risks you simply cannot afford. Thus, even in exhaustion, you attend carefully to the necessities of your trade, driven less by pride than grim practicality. Finally, As darkness fully claims your workspace, you light a small, smoky oil lamp, its flickering flame casting unsettling shadows across walls stained with years of grime and neglect. You stare silently into the wavering flame, weary beyond measure, yet unable to truly rest. Thoughts haunt you persistently, visions of your endless struggle, your battered hands, the invisible price paid for others' comfort. But what can be done? This life chose you, not you it, and escape remains an impossible fantasy. You sigh bitterly, accepting once more the cruel logic that governs your existence. Your skill is your burden, your craft both tormentor and provider. Slowly you extinguish the lamp, plunging the workshop into oppressive darkness. Tomorrow awaits, a day exactly like today, filled with hazards and quiet ironies, a life measured not in joys, but scars, cuts, and relentless pain. This, you remind yourself bitterly, is craftsmanship at its most honest, harsh, unforgiving, and forever grimly detailed. With darkness now settling heavily over your humble dwelling, it is time to take your painstakingly prepared wares to market. Gathering your goods is no dignified affair. Instead, it is an awkward dance performed by weary limbs and battered hands. You bundle the stiffened hides into rough piles, binding them tightly with coarse twine that digs painfully into the fresh wounds on your palms. Each movement sends jolts of discomfort through your aching joints, yet you endure it silently, well aware that complaints would fall on deaf ears, or worse, elicit mockery from those who neither understand nor care about your suffering. Once the hides are secured, you hoist the bundle onto your back, the rough edged package pressing painfully against your shoulders, your spine groaning under its weight. There is no cart, no mule, no assistance, only your solitary figure trudging slowly toward town beneath the cold gaze of the moon. Each step is a small battle won, your feet sinking into the muddy pathways, the uneven ground threatening at every moment to pitch you forward, forcing humiliating caution with every step. Entering town, the reality of your position becomes starkly clear. You are no respected craftsman entering proudly to sell your goods. Rather, you are a begrudgingly tolerated presence, your worth measured solely by necessity rather than esteem. As you approach the market square, townspeople quickly give way, parting like water around a rock, noses wrinkled, eyes averted. Their distaste for your presence hangs palpably in the air, an unspoken insult that cuts deeper than any physical wound you've suffered today. You select an unclaimed corner, far removed from other vendors who chatter amiably among themselves. No one greets you warmly, no one acknowledges you at all. Instead, you stand quietly, arranging your hides neatly, waiting in tense silence for customers to reluctantly approach. And approach they do, though grudgingly and always from a distance, as if proximity to your presence alone might contaminate them. Your first customer, a portly shoemaker with a perpetual scowl etched upon his flushed face, stands cautiously a few paces away, squinting at your offerings suspiciously. He mutters vaguely, poking disdainfully at the stiffened leather with his walking stick as though afraid direct contact might harm him. You endure his inspection silently, eyes downcast to hide the bitterness you feel. Finally, satisfied, or perhaps merely resigned, he names an insultingly low price. You protest softly, though you know the futility of your objection even before the words escape your lips. The shoemaker merely snorts, reminding you coldly that he can easily buy elsewhere. His eyes sweep contemptuously over your tattered attire, your dirt encrusted skin, the pungent aura lingering around you. You accept his terms bitterly, well aware the exchange will barely cover your most basic needs. Coins change hands briskly, the shoemaker retreating swiftly, clutching the leather as if fearful your touch might somehow linger upon it. This interaction repeats itself, each subsequent encounter equally unpleasant, marked by suspicion, contempt, and merciless bargaining. A saddle maker pinches his nose theatrically throughout the exchange, making exaggerated gestures of disgust, as if your very existence was a personal affront. A town guard purchasing material for his armor looks at you as one might regard a criminal, his eyes narrowed in suspicion, fingers lingering near his sword as if expecting trouble at any moment. Yet these are your customers, your lifeline, your only chance at survival. They despise you, mock you, exploit your desperation, yet remain dependent upon the products you provide. The irony does not escape you. Their comfort, indeed, their very survival, depends upon your labor, your suffering, your sacrifice, and yet they remain utterly blind to the humanity beneath the grime, dismissing you without a second thought, condemning you with every sneer, every coin withheld. As the market crowd slowly thins, you reflect bitterly on the twisted logic of your existence. You labor endlessly, risking injury, illness, and perpetual disgrace, only to find your efforts valued at mere copper pieces. Wealth eludes you entirely, comfort remains a distant fantasy, and respect proves eternally unattainable. You are trapped, forever an outcast, despite your indispensable contributions. Society demands your skill, but punishes you for possessing it. Nearby, the cheerful chatter of other vendors drifts mockingly through the evening air, underscoring your isolation. They exchange friendly banter, warm laughter echoing softly, oblivious to your suffering mere yards away. Their stalls, filled with colorful fruits, fresh bread, bright fabrics, and polished goods, stand in sharp contrast to your humble offering, a grim reminder of your perpetual status as an outsider. You glance briefly toward them, envy rising sharply within you, quickly tempered by resignation. Their acceptance is something you will never possess. Your last customer approaches hesitantly, a nervous young apprentice sent by his master. He flinches slightly as he draws near, avoiding direct eye contact, as though fearful your gaze might curse him. He bargains clumsily, voice quivering with anxiety, offering an even lower sum than usual. You agree immediately, lacking the strength or will to haggle further. He leaves hurriedly, relief plain upon his face, casting furtive glances backward as if worried you might follow him, contaminating his path. With your goods now sold or practically given away, you gather your few coins, counting them slowly, despairingly. The weight of your earnings feels pitifully small in your calloused hands, yet heavy with irony. This is your worth, measured carefully in copper and contempt. The bitter reality weighs upon you heavily, more oppressive than any physical burden you bear. Darkness envelops the market entirely, and your fellow vendors depart one by one, leaving the square silent and desolate. You remain briefly alone among empty stalls and abandoned crates. For a moment, solitude offers relief, free from judgmental eyes and disdainful whispers. But the comfort proves fleeting, swiftly replaced by loneliness so profound it aches within your chest, sharper than any injury sustained throughout the day. Wearily, you gather your remaining belongings, turning once more toward home. The journey back through deserted streets feels endless, each step heavier, more painful than the last. Fatigue claws at your limbs, your heart burdened by humiliation, frustration, and bitter self awareness. Tonight, more than ever, your life seems absurdly unjust, the irony of your position deeply cruel. Your goods sustain society, yet society repays you with disdain and exclusion. Reaching your hovel once more, you push open the warped wooden door, stumbling wearily inside. Dropping heavily onto your crude stool, you stare blankly into the darkness. Your body aches from countless minor injuries. Your heart aches from endless rejection. Your spirit aches from years of invisibility. You are a craftsman without honor, essential yet forgotten, necessary yet despised. And as you sit in silence, the quiet darkness surrounds you, mercilessly highlighting the bitter truth of your existence. The hides you prepare clothe kings and peasants alike, protect soldiers, merchants, and nobles, but never shield you from contempt or poverty. Your life remains mired in irony, bound by a system that simultaneously relies on and rejects you. Closing your eyes briefly, you inhale deeply the familiar acrid stench that permeates your skin, clothing, and very soul. Tomorrow will be no different. Another day spent laboring for a world that refuses to acknowledge your humanity. But for tonight, alone in your squalid shack, you surrender momentarily to despair, accepting once more the cruel realities of your trade, necessary, invisible, and eternally despised. You sit motionless in the darkness, enveloped by shadows that offer neither comfort nor peace. The thin moonlight barely penetrates the cracks in your shack, illuminating tiny patches of dirt and grime on the floor, walls, and your own exhausted body. Weariness clings to you heavily, deeper than mere physical fatigue, an ache in your bones matched only by the quiet emptiness settling in your chest. With slow, heavy movements, you rise reluctantly, each joint protesting the demands of a day spent wrestling with decay, filth, and disdain. Hunger gnaws weakly in your gut, but it offers no motivation, no sense of anticipation or satisfaction. Eating has become just another tedious chore, a monotonous necessity devoid of pleasure. Moving stiffly, You gather a chipped clay bowl, spooning thin, flavorless gruel from a battered iron pot suspended above dying embers. The meal, already cold and congealed, slides down your throat reluctantly, a tasteless mass offering no nourishment to your battered spirit. You eat mechanically, spoonful after spoonful, eyes fixed blankly on nothing in particular, mind wandering aimlessly through bleak thoughts of your endless daily drudgery. Around you, the hovel's bleakness mirrors your inner desolation. The roof leaks softly, dripping rainwater into an empty pot on the floor, each droplet echoing hollowly in the oppressive silence. You watch absent mindedly as water accumulates, your gaze vacant, your thoughts drifting toward an even bleaker future, one filled with the same exhausting repetition, endless labor, and inevitable isolation. Setting aside your bowl, you stare into the shadows, exhaustion gripping your limbs, pinning you to your stool as surely as chains. A slow ache radiates from the wounds on your hands, each scrape, slice, and blister now throbbing insistently, painful reminders of your grim existence. Your life has become defined by injury, discomfort, and the relentless demands of a craft that punishes as much as it sustains. You glance briefly toward your sleeping pallet, a miserable arrangement of straw, damp and rank from constant moisture and sweat. Sleep itself offers no real respite. Your dreams are filled with echoes of your waking torment, visions of hides, vats of filth, mocking faces at market, each image woven into your subconscious, haunting you relentlessly even in rest. Yet, inevitably, you rise again each morning, trapped within a grim cycle, devoid of hope or possibility of escape. Slowly, your eyes wander across your shack's interior, resting briefly upon crude wooden shelves littered with cracked bowls, dull knives, and tattered scraps of cloth. Everything around you seems worn, discarded, or broken, reflecting your own condition. Even your few possessions bear silent witness to years of neglect, decay, and desperation, each item a metaphor for your own slowly unraveling life. In a rare moment of clarity, you bitterly acknowledge the irony of your existence. You produce essential goods, yet your life remains defined by deprivation. You toil endlessly to provide comfort, protection, and elegance to others, yet you yourself remain perpetually uncomfortable, unprotected, and despised. Society demands your labor, but denies you even basic dignity. This reality cuts deeper than any blade ever could. A sudden gust of wind rattles the loose boards of your shack, briefly interrupting your thoughts. You shiver involuntarily, pulling your threadbare cloak tighter around yourself, though it offers little warmth. You imagine briefly the warmth of homes nearby, where families gather around comforting hearths, laughing easily, ignorant and unconcerned with the silent suffering you endure mere steps away. The image fades swiftly, leaving only a hollow ache of envy and longing. With deliberate effort, you move toward the corner of your shack reserved for healing, though calling it that is almost humorous. You dip your raw, cracked hands into a bucket of murky water, rinsing away dried blood and accumulated grime. The water stings sharply as it meets open wounds, drawing fresh curses and gasps of pain, though you accept the sensation stoically, knowing such discomfort is necessary to survive yet another day. Using scraps of rough cloth, you wrap your damaged hands tightly, applying crude ointments that burn fiercely upon contact. Pain briefly clears your mind, sharp and immediate, a distraction from deeper emotional aches that never seem to fade. Yet the sting soon recedes, leaving behind only dull throbbing, constant and familiar, another silent companion you carry through each day. Settling wearily onto your straw pallet, you close your eyes briefly, though rest refuses to come. Your mind races restlessly, revisiting the day's humiliations, injuries, and disappointments. The future looms darkly, a bleak tapestry of monotonous repetition, stretching endlessly ahead. Each day promises identical suffering, unending labor, and inescapable isolation, a truth so starkly apparent you nearly laugh aloud from sheer desperation. Yet beneath this bitterness lies quiet resignation. Your anger long ago faded into weary acceptance, your pride replaced by numbness. You no longer resist your fate, no longer question its fairness or cruelty. Instead, you merely exist, trapped within the inescapable logic of your own insignificance, understanding fully your life holds no greater meaning beyond daily survival. You breathe deeply, inhaling air thickened by dampness, decay, and chemicals, a scent permanently etched into your senses, a cruel signature marking your very identity. Briefly, you recall your younger self, naive, hopeful, believing foolishly that effort, honesty, and diligence might grant reward, respect, or at least some small comfort. The thought brings a bitter smile. Such hopes seem absurdly childish now, laughably removed from reality. Sleep remains elusive despite your physical exhaustion. Hours pass slowly, filled with restless shifting, painful joints, and relentless thoughts. Finally, as dawn creeps slowly closer, your body surrenders briefly to unconsciousness, though rest is fleeting and shallow, disrupted constantly by dreams that echo your daily torment. You awaken frequently, startled by visions of vats overflowing, blades slipping, mocking faces sneering contemptuously. Each awakening brings brief relief, followed immediately by crushing realization this nightmare is reality. As the first faint rays of morning filter reluctantly through the gaps in your walls, your eyes flutter open once more, greeted by the oppressive certainty of another day exactly like the last. You rise slowly, stiffly, accepting once more your grim responsibilities, hides to scrape, vats to fill, hands to injure, and dignity to sacrifice. You pull yourself upright with mechanical precision, each movement lacking purpose, driven solely by grim necessity. You step outside into the cool, pale morning, the air heavy with familiar acrid odors. The vats loom silently, patiently waiting, indifferent to your weariness, your pain, your despair. They demand your attention, your labor, your life, promising nothing but more of the same endless drudgery. A cycle as unbroken as your own spirit seems irreparably shattered. As you begin your tasks anew, resignation settles once more within your heart, an acceptance bleak yet absolute. You understand now the cruelest irony. Your entire existence serves a purpose that excludes you entirely. You clothe others, protect others, sustain others, yet remain forever unclothed, unprotected, unsustained yourself. And thus, beneath the indifferent morning sun, your cycle continues, unending, unchanged, unbearable. Your existence, you now realize bitterly, is utterly pointless, defined only by relentless repetition and grim necessity. There is no escape, no relief, no hope, only the cruel certainty that your suffering serves a world unwilling to grant you even the smallest mercy. Such is your life, realistic, harsh, endlessly ironic, a daily grind endured solely because no other option exists. As you sink once more into the filth and toil of your craft, you accept again the profound, cruel truth of your reality. Your life is defined by suffering, by invisibility, by the ceaseless futility of existence itself.